in the presence of Nigerians. Leave him go, leave him go.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's celebrate our former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, as you see it.
What I believe and what I believe that Chief Adebanjo believed is not ethnic, it's not sectional, it's not religious, it is Nigeria and Nigeria. When I go out and people say, we thank you, I say, what are you thanking me for? And I tell them, please stop thanking me. Why should you be thanking me? I believe in equity. I believe in justice. I believe in one Nigeria. I have shed my blood for this country. I have gone to prison for this country. So what are you going to frighten me or threaten me with? The problem we have in our front and in our hand is not ethnic, it's national. And for me, the first thing that is important in a leader is character. The problem we have had over the years is that we don't have leaders who have the right type of character that they should be entrusted with the leadership role. So if I put my finger on anything or anybody, it's because comparing one with another, I see that there is merit that will be of benefit to Nigeria.
A former commander-in-chief, each of the 21 gun salutes pinched the nerves of the nation he once dominated. Friends, relations, and survivors of the over 1,000 Ijaw people that his soldiers massacred in Odi, Bayelsa State, dropped a stem of rose at the gate of his presidential library. The people of Benue State, led by General Victor Malo's son, brought 200 cows to his Ota farm, one for each of their people his soldiers also killed in Zaki Biam. Hovering on top of his flag-draped coffin were the ghosts of Bolaige, Masha Hari, Isiaku Mohammed, Omonoya Uche, OGB, and many others assassinated under his watch. Under heavy guard, Charles Taylor kissed the president's coffin. Andy Uba, dressed in all white, followed next. Earlier in the day, the long-time domestic aide had given his body a bath for the very last time. Welcome to Urgent Care, where we treat matters too urgent to wait for tomorrow. I am Dr. Damages. Watching former Senator Buruji Kashamu's funeral reminded me of many more funerals yet to come. Mine, yours, and Obasanjo's. Mine is of no consequence. Yours may be significant. But for former President Olusegun Obasanjo, his will be monumental. as the first military dictator to voluntarily hand over power to civilians in sub-Saharan Africa, a distinguished citizen of the world who almost became a UN Secretary General, the first Nigerian civilian president re-elected in a free and fair election. Wink, wink. The planning of Obasanjo's funeral started many years before Kashamu's death. At sunset, the yet to fizzle out Zamfara Sharia choir sang Hail the Chief. Bakassi boys, who were providing additional security with Odua People's Congress, OPC, did nothing to stop Amina Lawal from giving a moving rendition of Nigeria We Hail Thee, the old national anthem. Her backup singers were the Masob Orchestra, led by Rafu Wazleke. Isioma Daniels, for the very first time, removed her veil and read the lessons, the first lesson during the service at Abeokuta Methodist Church. From the pulpit, Reverend Sunday Mbang pontificated about his wisdom, his courage, and his decency. NTA camera caught Abubakar Atiku hissing at each word. In his home in Kaduna, the son of Wada Nas began to write a beautiful satire by imagining his father's beloved friend, Sani Abacha, welcoming the former president to heaven. The outpouring of affection peaked when the representatives of South African business interests in Nigeria arrived. They brought along the famous Zulu drummers and the scantily dressed South African virgin dancers who sang about the president's humbleness, his polite and his respectful manner, and how he made us all feel good about ourselves. The young ladies noted that their presence will make the former president smile, even in his coffin. Somehow, nobody opened the coffin to check if he was smiling. On Radio Nigeria, Bode George spoke of the high purpose he brought to his job, the majesty he brought to the presidency, and the moral clarity he instilled in the nation's leadership. It was such a moving ceremony that millions of unemployed youths paused from watching Big Brother Niger and one by one lined up the streets to applaud his motorcade for the final time. Wild women rolled their naked bodies in the dust, wailing and calling on the heaven to pay. One after another, the Commonwealth's heads of states paid their last respect. Yoweri Museveni issued a statement in Kampala calling him, quote, a man who should never have been born in Nigeria, but should have been born in Uganda. The Bado-based Tribune newspaper published a front-page piece on the legacy of Olusegun Obasanjo. The newspaper spoke to many of Obasanjo's contemporaries. Here are some of the things they said. A man who helped defeat Obasanjo's attempt to change the constitution to get a third term in office said this: Obasanjo will forever live in one mythology. He was the definitive proof of how not to be president. He performed so woefully that if Nigeria were people who valued excellence, they would staple a towel to his corpse so that when he reincarnates and aspires to a leadership position, he will promptly be identified and quarantined. His classmate at Baptist Boys High School, Owo, said, Obasanjo spared nobody of any pretension to civility, so we should spare him no pretension to polite tribute. I can bet my last naira that no parents named their child Olusegun as a consequence of his sojourn at the presidency. A famous poet told the newspaper, Obasanjo's era had no poetry. His days had no imagination. If Obasanjo only stole the cup of invincibility from Nigeria, it would have been pardonable. But he dropped it into a latrine. The adventures of Obasanjo would make for a bad children's coloring book. Then this one from a musician. Obasanjo proved that if you change the clothes without changing the diaper, what stinks will continue to stink. Wow. A former governor, when Obasanjo was president, said this: while Obasanjo spent most of his time in office designing ways to pocket billions, like the kickbacks from the $16 billion he blew in power generation that generated darkness, his wife, Stella, was busy tucking in her stomach in Spain. That's not nice. That's not nice. Several international newspapers published his obituary. At the Sydney Morning Herald, the following lines were part of the lead editorial. It says, Obasanjo's tragedy, like that of so many Africans, was to have admired a civilization whose external trappings he strongly desired, but of whose internal workings he had no idea. He was a product of multiculturalism, African style, and able to use relatively advanced methods to achieve brutal, primitive ends. Like every African dictator, he was Confucian's masterpiece. Written on a virtual tombstone made for him by his side daughter were these eternal words: "There lies a man who had the greatest opportunity to be the father of modern Nigeria. But he blew the chance because he allowed pettiness and selfishness to block his view of what his country needed to be on an irreversible path to greatness. The damage his failure wreaked is the reward that we are enjoying today." Africa, who did this to us? Who did this to us?